In October 2017, a friend I had known 25 years, Mike Bostwick, released a podcast praising me and our friendship. Not only was his salute unexpected and touching, it was among the kindest gestures anyone had ever shown me. His altruism inspired me to return the favor by celebrating people who changed the trajectory of my life. My Uncle Jack is someone that is more like, he was more like a big brother than an uncle, because, I mean, we really kind of grew up together in the same house. So I could tell you tons of stories about how my uncle was an influence, in my life, between interests in music and records and, things like video and recording things. A lot of that stuff in my life really started with him. Like, he was the person that kind of introduced me to so many of those things that later had a huge influence in my life. I remember the very first video game that I ever played in my life was Pong, right? The old tennis game that you'd hook up to the television set. And my uncle had borrowed a Pong console from a friend of his. I remember coming home one night and seeing it hooked up on the television, and it just blew my mind. It was the most amazing thing I had ever seen. Like, how are you interacting with the TV set, right? That just was like, what? Like, I couldn't get over it. And then he was a DJ, so all of his, records, that was like a big influence on me too, to really get into a lot of pop music. And he was the first person I knew who had a video camera. And again, he borrowed a video camera from, a friend of his, and we were playing around with that, and he would bring it on vacations and stuff. But I will say that what was probably one of the most influential experiences of my life is something that happened between my uncle and I that he probably doesn't even remember. But it really, really had a profound influence on me, and I still credit that with the reason that I create videos like this. It was the first time that I had ever seen a cassette recorder. And he had this little tape recorder with a little microphone, and he had me talking into it. I must have been 3 or 4 years old. And when he played the tape back, I remember this very vividly. It was in his bedroom. And when I had recorded the stuff where I was talking, he was standing by his bedroom window. When we played it back, he was sitting down on the bed next to me. And I remember as I heard my voice being played back on the cassette recorder, I was really confused, because in my mind, I genuinely perceived this as time travel. And so I thought that, he should be standing by the window, right? Because that's where he was when this was recorded. And I could not understand why things weren't functioning that way. And the thing is, I was so young that I couldn't articulate it, right? I couldn't really explain to my uncle what was going on in my head, and why I was how are you sitting on the bed, but it's still my voice, and if I'm saying that, then you have to be over there because that's where you were when I said this stuff. And as I got older, I realized the wonder and the magic of recording technology, right? Of audio tapes, and of shooting video, and of making movies, and of shooting photographs. all of these things, all of this technology truly is time travel, right? Those thoughts that I had as a little child, they weren't that crazy. They weren't that weird. I wasn't really off base. I was kind of onto something. And as I got older, I think part of my love for all of this technology is that, right? Is that idea that you can capture these moments in time and preserve them for you to enjoy later on. And nowhere in my life was that proven to be more true than shooting video of my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. Because now that I have those home movies, it is truly one of my most valuable material possessions. Because so many people in that video, they're all gone, right? They've all died, they've all passed away. And I can put that video on and I can still see them, I can still hear them, they're still making jokes, and it is time travel. And that's why this kind of technology is so important. You know, it's not about taking a nice picture or shooting a cool video. It's about preserving moments in time that will never come again. And that moment, when I was 3, 4 years old with my uncle and that tape recorder, really kind of started me on that path. And like I said, it was a minor little thing that he probably doesn't even remember. But it really had a profound effect on me. And that's one of the things that I will always love my uncle for. But I do have to go off on one little tangent. I could end the video right there. It's a good ending. It's a good spot. But I do want to tell you one story about my uncle, because it's one of my favorite stories. And he will probably know which story this is going to be. The story of him nearly blowing his face off. Okay, so I paint the picture for you. We are at my great aunt's house. She has a built-in swimming pool, right? It's the beginning of the summer, and I'm over there with my uncle, and we're working on cleaning the pool and getting it all ready for the summer. Well, there's a shed in the backyard, and inside that shed is a bunch of tools and whatever, and there's also a water heater to heat the water for the pool. And it's a gas water heater. So my uncle's trying to get this thing lit, and he can't do it, right? It's not lighting for him. So he leaves the gas turned on and goes back into the house to ask my uncle, hey, you know, how do I do this? My uncle explains it to him. Jack comes back out to the shed, and by this time, the shed just reeks of gas, right? To the point where, like, you feel like if you walk through that door, you're a little woozy, right? Like, and I was just like, whoa. I'm like, you know, like I said, keep in mind, I'm 14 years old, right? My uncle is like in his 30s. He should know better. But but he didn't. So I said, hey, we got to leave the door open, you know, turn the gas off. Let's let this air out a little bit before you go to light it, because, you know, the thing's going to blow up. My uncle's like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm like, are you out of your mind? You know, I can smell the gas. Like it's a bad idea. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be anywhere near here. So I'm standing maybe about 5-10 feet outside the door of the shed, which frankly was probably still too close. I probably should have been on the other side of the yard. But I'm standing there, I'm watching him. My uncle goes to light this thing, right? He gets this, like, I think it was paper, like just using like an old newspaper or something, you know, lights the end of this roll of newspaper, sticks it underneath, and all of a sudden, this fireball, the size of like a beach ball, just goes and completely engulfs his head. Needless to say, I'm horrified, right? I'm standing there like in complete shock. I'm thinking, oh my God, like first I'm thinking my uncle just killed himself, right? Then I saw he was moving around. My next thought was, oh God, he blew his face off. Like he's going to turn around and he's going to look like Freddy Krueger, and I'm just waiting for him to, you know, start screaming in excruciating pain. And he turns and looks at me, and he's completely fine, thank God. But yeah, mustache, and it was all gray, and so were his eyebrows. And I just looked at him and I went, wow. And I'm not exaggerating. He reached up and touched his eyebrow. It disintegrated in his fingers. It just turned to dust. There was nothing left. He looked like Guinan on Star Trek. And thankfully that's all that happened to him. He singed all the hair on his face. He was okay, but that was definitely an I told you so kind of moment. It's like, hey, guess what? When the shed smells like gas, don't try to light the fire. Very bad idea. Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorite stories about my uncle.
I don't have to tell you old-timers, there was no one exactly like him. He was the minstrel of minstrels. And you young people, listen to a voice that had people cheering, crying, applauding for almost 50 years.